to adjust the agenda for both things, or are we just adjusting the agenda for finance? We have a full agenda, but yet it's, comes law.
Well, I mean, if there's something that's come up that we need to address tomorrow, we can certainly make that change, and that's nice to do that.
I guess my question is more tomorrow. Are you gonna ask if we want
If there's anything to add.
amendments to the agenda, like time frame, like that, because like, if we're not gonna do it that way, then tomorrow, you have approved commissioners proceedings at 3, at 4:15, you have the approved consent agenda. I would say those could be both squished up, to, immediately following the finance committee meeting.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that, if that's what you would do. If there's, what I'm suggesting is if there's any other business that can be worked, or if there's any issues that we don't get to often, then we try to use that time, because we try along this way, trying to make those conversations that always put that off.
So then, would you rather then not move those 2 items up?
It doesn't matter to me on that, it's just that I would, if we're saving time or cramming stuff up to stay planned, let's take that opportunity so that we don't have to push out to Wednesday to address issues that I suggest they be issues actually, when we get into discussion, we get all these done with everything, we stop, we don't have time. We put that on there like parking lot, and go back to those issues.
So my question is, instead of saying, hey, let's move these up to immediately follow that, we just leave them there. But then you can, as chairman, can make changes to the agenda.
Right. No, and if there's anything that pops up, I'm not trying to make it.
The problem that I see is that we have, it's not a problem. The format that we have, circuit board puts out our agenda, right? Right. And so in that, she leaves these time frames where if something pops up, you just put it in there.
How would you leave that?
By decision on Friday, and then Monday, we have a meeting, and then I can
Oh, well.
Well, no, I guess what I'm thinking is, so we got, like on Tuesday, you have 3 o'clock, approve the commissioners proceedings. So that usually takes us like 5 minutes, right? And then an hour and 15 minutes later, we have to approve the consent agenda. And so, I'm just curious, and again, that's why I keep saying, I like the thought of on Monday, come in, open up the agenda.
I do too.
Going, hey, look, this is an hour and 15 minutes apart. Does it need to be down at 4:15? Is there anything we want to, do there? So,
Right.
Well, there were a lot of minutes to go through, and I wasn't sure if the board needed time
time
to
to
go
do it,
through
that's totally fine.
those,
Yeah,
So then if we just leave that alone, and then tomorrow we're willing to say, okay, we're not going to approve the consent agenda at 4:15, we can really approve it at 3:05, then I'm okay with it. So I guess it depends on,
well,
Mr. Brand, how you want that to look.
well, for me, my understanding was those big gaps where you don't know how exactly long you're going to take on things. So, on the minutes, sometimes we do them in 5 minutes, sometimes we do them in 20 minutes.
And true, if we review it, so she's giving us time.
Right. comes up that he talks about, we can go ahead and put it in there. You know, if we have time or, but, you know, stuff comes every Monday, usually. I'm surprised you don't have anything new.
Well, I'm sure I have a lot of discussion about it. I'm fine with doing that way, going over that, knowing that, you know, I mean, obviously, there's something, but we're not just gonna sit here for 3 hours just to get to the point where we
No, that's what we're trying to avoid.
Right, okay.
That's the whole thing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So we don't sit around doing nothing. Because I can do that somewhere else.
I can actually make phone calls. All right. I guess, I don't have... Oh, the question was, okay, so we have, this is where I was going with the rescheduled public hearing. So you notice that at 10 is our discussion about pest control.
Yeah.
Now, is that with someone?
Just among ourselves, yourself.
Or just among us? Okay.
But add to that, that's on the agenda, and then just that appointments, then there's, the conversation I had with, the commissioners from Douglas and, Chelan County.
Okay.
Well,
So that one might be longer than that.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
I don't know about 2 hours. It's almost like every meeting we would have something to talk about as far as what's transpiring in the Methow water situation.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's going on quick. And then we have the, you know, the letter that we're going to ratify that you wrote Friday, which I appreciate, or whatever that was, Wednesday, whatever it was. I appreciate you doing that because they needed that formal.
Well, Lanie wrote it, and then I came in. We looked it over and
Wow.
got it out of here.
Yeah. You know, with that, so the Watershed Council we had a meeting on Thursday, and they're like, well, what are we asking for? I said, we're going to do a watershed plan update. I said, well, what about the CRM? And I said, well, CRM to me is like a little bit broader than just the watershed plan update. So we could, if we write a scope that says, yeah, we're going to do, so CRM is like, basically it would look at your land use, it would tie a bunch of things together, realistically. It might not be a bad idea, but whatever we do with the scope of ecology, as long as it has to do with watershed planning, it's relevant in there. And then I've been getting a lot of phone calls from people that own property that can't build on them. And they understand what we're doing. It's nice. Well, some of them do.
Yeah, I've had some communication from some that don't.
Some of them do not.
Yeah. I get some of those too.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I thought about bringing up was that if there's, occasionally somebody comes up with a circumstance we haven't dealt with yet, which is good for them to do that, and then kind of kick around some ideas, interim ideas, things that we may be able to talk to ecology about as we approach this planning effort. But if there are certain kinds of mitigation we come up with, even if we don't have the mechanism to do it now, we might find we do, I don't know, and then try to deal with those if we can, and if we can't, we're talking about them because, the various circumstances then are raised and we can familiarize ourselves with what the issues might be.
So one thing that I want to point out, everybody keeps bringing up Kittitas County.
Yeah.
Oh, you should go down and talk to Kittitas County. You need to talk to Kittitas County. Their situation was very different than ours is.
So So the people are telling you that.
People are telling me that.
They
did it. They were able to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, they were. Their river was not below base flows in the wintertime.
Right.
And so they were able to convert irrigation to
Bottle.
well, yeah, to mediation.
Domestic.
Well, yeah, basically. They're mitigated. That's what they're doing. Sorry. They're able to change that over to a mitigation for that. And not only that, the water right that they had was giant out of those rivers.
Was what?
Was really big.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention the fact that they also did have, they had storage in a couple different places. They had Lake Cochise or Catchulus, yeah. They have several reservoirs down that county that they're able to literally store water in if
Yeah,
they needed
there's
to.
more storage on that you don't see.
Right.
Above Catchulus on the
Yeah.
other side.
Right, on the other side.
Yeah.
So their situation, again, was very different than ours because you go up in the Methow, the last storage place that you could get anything into is probably Patterson or Peregrine, you know, if you look at the east-west line. And neither one of those are going to accept a ton of water without some work.
So those are pretty big, broad issues too, right?
Right.
So I was thinking about. By the way, when I suggested you get a hold of Jewel. Yeah, I know, but that I wanted to make sure you understood that wasn't because we want to do it. I know people.
No. I know exactly what.
Okay.
I know why. Because he needed to be updated on what was going on. Because as he and I had that conversation, he didn't realize. See, the other thing that people kind of throw around is, well, we don't think the reservation, should exist or is valid over there. Okay. Again, that basin is very much different because the reservation was not set after the in-stream flow was set.
Mm-hmm.
So it was set under an RCW. I can find it, but I mean, there's RCWs in there that speak to reservations of water, and it was set in conjunction with, at the same time as the in-stream flow, and so it is a water right that is first in time to the in-stream flow, where a lot of these other, and if you go through the WACs, you can figure out which ones did it. I think there was only one other watershed, I want to say, that when they wrote their first in-stream flow rule that had a reserve with it. All the rest of them, see, they tried to reserve water after the fact. Well, you can't just reserve water after. That's like me saying, well, I want a water right, but it's going to infringe upon your water right that's earlier.
Right, and those are the complexities of their issues in Kittitas County, which I actually, personally, I'm not bothered with any of that stuff. I'm actually more that the conversation with Jewel is lobbying that he's doing right now and what he knows about what's going to happen and what might happen and those things.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the main reasons. Now, any suggestions other than that, like, one suggestion was that don't do a moratorium, just process the permits as they come in, as you're going to do anyway. That was only just a suggestion and something to talk about whenever they get there.
But if my worry would be that,
but I don't care about any of that really. What my point is that I just wanted you to have that conversation to give you a perspective other than what you're getting from the folks in the Methow and yourself, actually. So, and that's what I gained a perspective on some concepts that just, they don't even have to, nothing's the same as far as I'm concerned, I can't go to any basin and say anything's the same. And, but more importantly, Jewel's in the middle of several processes that may reflect on our decisions. So that's why the conversation with Jewel.
That he did not. We didn't have any discussion about that.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about any processes that he's in the middle of. All we did was have just a conversation about what the kind of the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, well, if you need anything else, call me.
Mm-hmm.
There was that thought of, do you really need to put a moratorium on it? And it's like, well, you do if you don't have the code section correct, or I guess stringent enough to say if somebody comes in and puts a building permit in that, okay, you can do it here and not do it there or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is
So,
one
so here's one that I thought too, then, along those lines, is that if somebody comes in and wants to submit a permit, and you say, I can't take your permit application,
you can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to, in my opinion, a permit application is just that. It's a permit application. If it were me, I think running planning, I think I would say, do you want to submit a permit application, or would you like a site analysis first? Because a site analysis is $90. That's it, or whatever it may be. I think it's $90. Pretty sure. And I could tell planning could tell you what you want to do. If I said I want to put a bed and breakfast on my place.
right?
Okay, well then, let's go through and make sure you're zoned right. I want to put a commercial business on it, blah, 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 whatever. That would be, so I did last,
just let me complete that thought, though. Okay, because and you're following me just exactly right. You're not going to deny them the opportunity to make that application, but you're going to say, I can take your application, but you can do the site analysis to see, in fact, what you have and don't have, which is always good. I like that. Or if you want to submit an application, you can, but one thing that we have is water adequacy that we have to determine. Right? So what's your source of water? Let's talk about that. And then, you don't have to go exactly through the entire site analysis, because the site analysis is going to cover a lot of things. I would suggest they do, but that's something if they want to put an application in, file it, and then the application isn't complete if you don't have a water source.
Yeah, I often wonder why it doesn't follow that format.
Which one?
The site analysis first.
I think it should. But some people just want to come in and see, the problem is that, so you can't, in my opinion, if somebody comes in and files for a building permit or any permit, you cannot just deny them. You can't just say, no, I'm not going to take your money or your permit. However, people need to understand that once we do that, that permit money is paying for the time it takes to figure out if the permit can be issued. So it's not like you're paying for the piece of paper that you get that says this is a permit. You're paying for the work it takes for those people to issue you that piece of paper.
Well, also, maybe that the verbiage in that permit application should say on the top of it, non-refundable.
Yeah, I agree with you. However, I think planning should push a site analysis because it does a lot of different things. It tells you what you can do. Again, and Commissioner Brandon's just right. It tells you a lot of things that maybe you don't need to know. However, you don't want to get into where you're just going, okay, well, we got this site analysis based on water, we got a site analysis based on zoning, blah, blah, blah. I think you just have a site analysis that costs X amount of dollars, or $90, $100 or whatever, and here's what you can do on your piece of property.
So that conversation is canned kind of in this one thing. Yeah, we push site analysis, but the main thing that, you can put yourself in this position of running the planning department. So let me put myself in that same position. And conversations I've had when people come in and says, well, you can make an application. By the way, that we have an issue with available water. So I was wondering what your water source was. That's I mean,
I guess, yeah, that's a valid question, because then you're not necessarily,
it's a pre-application interview of sorts.
yeah, the only problem is, what if I say, well, I have a water right? Okay. Well, that's not necessarily a good one. I think it's a little bit different in that, okay, if you were to ask that question, I would say, I have mitigation.
We got Zach, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so confusing, can I make it?
Good answer, you came fast. You just got your. But that's what I was talking about the conversation that we're having, and we have to cut it off, and we can put it up later. You want to get those guys on?
Yes, sir.
I hear you, Zach. I think I heard your voice.
There we are. How we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
You know, still kicking. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All the snow's melting, so that's nice. We didn't get enough to really make a difference this year, so it's just an irritation, you know?
Yes.
First, did you guys get my email?
At 8:19 this morning?
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
That's the one. So it's, I'll just kind of cover a couple of real quick, just going over what's going on. I know that, Chris, I think you were on the steering committee call, weren't you? Oh, I saw you.
Yeah, I was on it, in and out.
Okay. You know, this year, really interesting year, and I think that they did a great job at the steering committee kind of outlining what's really going on. And the big thing that we're dealing with right now is the legislators are in a huge hurry to get everything out of committee, whether that's the policy and the fiscal committees, and get it onto the floor. And it seems like to date our suggestions or our comments are kind of falling on deaf ears. But telling us that, oh, we're going to amend it on the floor. We'll have this thing done. And don't worry about it. And, yeah, we hear your comments. Thank you. Please stop sending them. And so we're in an interesting kind of deal this year where we're going to have to watch the floor action for the next couple weeks here, you know, until we get to the next cutoff in early March and kind of see what these bills end up as. You know, the regional health districts is a great example of one. And I think Jamie did a great job running down that particular, you know, what they're looking at on that bill. We'll know more today what they're actually going to do, but they kind of squished both of Richelli's bills together. And, you know, in terms of your board composition and the regional health districts, and it's kind of going to look like it. And all this is hearsay right now, so we can't really tell you for sure. But I think the smaller counties, most of the eastern Washington counties except for Spokane, are going to be mostly exempt from the regionalization. It may be an advisory deal. We really don't know. We do still have some concerns based on what they're telling us in terms of what they're going to require on your local board of health. You know, and a lot of this stuff stems from the conversations that we've had previously, you know, really looking at these issues and these policies that they're looking at work really well in the cities, but they don't work well for us out here in the rural areas. So the governor is still leaning very, very, very heavily on the carbon initiative stuff. You know, some of this stuff we're just looking at, and hopefully we can get in front of it a little bit. It adversely impacts the rural areas as compared to the urban areas. I don't know exactly how that's all going to come out, but long story short, we're right now just in a holding pattern, just watching. And we get to watch and see what happens here as we go through the floor action. The good thing is, you know, as these bills start hitting the policy committees in the opposite house, we will have another opportunity to comment on them, which is why in my emails, anything you guys can do, I'm putting all the links on there for people to watch TVW, bill info, committee sign in, and then just the general participating in committees link. It kind of gives you more information. The more we can get this out to the people, the better off we are. I've had lots and lots and lots of our Republican senators and representatives talking about how the other side on the issues, whatever we're talking about, is showing a pretty good show of force from the constituents, and we need to get people involved from the rural areas and really help them out so they have a leg to stand on. So just kind of to emphasize that, we've got a lot of bills on that list that are, support, to monitor, concern, oppose. This is what WASAC's working on. If you guys see anything specifically on that list that I sent out that you would like to comment on or anything, please let me know. We can absolutely do that. And, start contacting sponsors, just if nothing else, to let them know the position. And WASAC, in our internal conversations, we have definitely had many conversations surrounding the fact that as individual county lobbyists and the individual counties may not and are not agreeing with the WASAC position. And they said that's okay. Of course it is okay. You guys can do whatever you want, but WASAC is in an interesting spot right now where they need to stay at the table. So they have to take a little bit of a softer approach to opposing legislation, whether it impacts all of the counties or individual counties. So, right now as commissioners, you guys are in a position where if there's something that you think WASAC needs to take more of a hard line on, you guys can, and so can I. So if you would like me to sign in or voice let's call it a less popular opinion, you or I can take that hit this year, whereas WASAC cannot. So just wanted to throw that out there as kind of a tidbit for you guys if you see something you really want to come out on.
So Zach, just a suggestion would be, as you see things turning along here, because, things are changing very quickly, and and I see that there's real effort to address in some of these bills those rural issues that we do have and those costs that it will pass on to us. But if you see bills that WASAC is definitely in conflict with what you think we might be in, would you list those bills? And if they're not making progress on protecting our interests, then that's where you come in.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this week is going to bring a lot of that to the forefront. Because as the legislators are telling us we're going to take care of it on the floor, we can only assume at this point that once we get through floor action in each house, the bills that come out are going to be kind of what they are. And so, we will then have a really clear idea, what we're going to do. And I'm working with the independent WASAC lobbyists, whether it's contract ones or staff, and letting them know that, I can take a lot of the heat that they can't. Because if they lock me out, well, WASAC's still there for you. So I will absolutely do that.
Because for me, on the Legislative Steering Committee, I'm there to support the WASAC agenda. So on that, given that side note on what I'm hearing, then you could report to all of us what issues that they're not being successful on, or they're not taking a position that really might affect Okanogan County.
Yeah, and a great example of that is WASAC has had to sign in with concerns on many bills that nobody should just be opposed. But if you sign in opposed, then you're not at the table anymore for conversation, and they're not going to listen to our suggestions. So I can take that. I can absolutely jump out in front of that. So what I'll do is I will work real closely with the WASAC staff here on that. And, when they ask me if I can step out in front of something, I'll make sure, that you guys are all right with it. And we'll start kind of taking that approach so that at least, the individual counties like this are on the record saying, no, this is not good for us. So the compromise is less not good for you, but it's still not good for you.
Right. And so that way, the other two commissioners here can kick into their mode if something is contrary to WASAC's LSC agenda, because that's something we agree to. We're not going to. Well, I've seen it happen before. I don't know if you were around, but there was a certain point there where the chair of the committee said somebody's coming in here on this committee, LSC, and then opposing legislation that we are supporting. And if they're going to do that, they might as well leave this room. And I went, oh, that was very early when I got on there. And I go, okay, so they're serious about that. And so upholding those general agenda items is something that I agree to do. But that doesn't mean that if you come back around, and that's why, of course, we have you with something that affects us specifically, then we can deal with that in another way and not be representing WASAC when we do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where we have that latitude. And, I mean, even that can be done in conjunction with WASAC, I mean, because, like I said, they can't always come out and just flat oppose something when we really should be opposing it. Because, I mean, as lobbyists, we do have that inside track, and we know that a bill is going to happen no matter what. And our side needs to stay at the table.
Yeah, and then if there's a bill that's going to happen,
we need to let them know.
So we need to make sure if there's adjustments to be made, maybe we can succeed in that area.
Absolutely. And they need to know how opposed we are, if we are, or that we support something. So, Yep. And I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. And I will absolutely be in touch and working closely with WASAC staff on that. And if you guys see anything that comes out of there that you don't agree with, or, that you want to take a harder line on, just let me know. That's not a problem. You can call me.
I have a question for you. How's Jim operating in this kind of virtual environment?
Oh, he's figured it out. I get a lot of calls. And how do I get onto this? What's going on? How do I get? What's my password? It's been interesting. I mean, and same with a lot of the legislators. I mean, very few of the legislators are younger. So it was a heck of a learning curve there at the start. And even with the legislators, in the beginning when they were on the floor, whoever was in control of the IT didn't actually have to ask a legislator to unmute their phone or their meeting. And they heard interesting stuff. I hear it's on YouTube if you want to go look at it. Good watching. I guess they got the former speaker Frank Chop on a phone call just yelling at somebody in his family, giving a heck of a breath down. I think that was kind of the end of that. So
get to know watch that.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions or anything, please, I will remind you, like I said, call or email anytime. And if you see anything that you want me to step out on a limb with here, like I said, call me, let me know, and I'll do the same in return. Make sure that we're ahead of this stuff as much as we can be because of the weird happenings this year.
Yes, sir. You guys have anything?
Just looking through these bills. So I don't really
kind of shorter. Raise any issues that need to be raised so that Commissioner Hover doesn't have to read every word.
Oh, we will do that for sure.
A lot of the times, reading every word is really important.
It's important.
A lot of times, reading every word is very important.
Never would I tell him not to do that. But I bet he can't read every word of every bill. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it very much, and we'll talk with you soon.
Okay, Zach, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioners, before we get too far into this morning, we do have a small batch of vouchers. It's a special AP run. It includes payroll and an $11,000 grant payment to the Orville Housing Authority for their sewer project. We had received the funds last week, and So rather than holding on to them beyond the 10 days before the next batch, I asked the auditor if they could please process the special run to pay that. So that's why we have it.
Are those funds that are going to go there and then come back?
So we approved the A-19.
Yep.
We sent it to Commerce.
Yep.
They sent us the EFT with the funds. And this is now paying Orville Housing Authority for the work that the preliminary sewer construction work that they had bills for.
Did they bill for it yet for the system development fees?
I believe that's what that is.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the engineer, architect, design portion. They haven't started the construction yet, but they are going to.
Oh, well, that would be an A-19 for Commerce then, right? The system development fees would be one for ecology.
Yeah, we're not going to process those. We're not handling
directly to them.
Correct.
Okay.
We are only going to pass through the $194,000 of funds for the Commerce grant, and then we're going to pay out the $68,000 from our homeless housing towards the end of the project. They'll spend down the grant before they get to the 68 for homeless housing. So those are the only two pots of money that they will be spending through the county.
Yeah, I was just curious if they, outside of that, if we received system development fees yet.
We're not going to handle that at all.
No, they will pay us.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll pay, however that is set up to be paid.
To the treasurer's office. Through
the treasurer or through planning. I'm not sure how that goes because we don't get very many.
We can ask the treasurer when she's here.
Yeah. The other portion of funds through the Housing Trust is also involved. That is just through Housing Trust. We won't be handling any of those bills either, or passing through any funds regarding that loan.
It's direct.
It's direct.
Okay.
So, let's authorize vouchers and payroll in the total amount of $1,028,565.15.
Second.
A motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Also, the bid packet for the county legal newspaper went out today.
Okay.
It will be published in this week's newspaper, and the newspapers that we deal with are also receiving it in an email today. So we'll have a bid opening on the bids will be due on March 17th. We'll have a bid opening on March 23rd, and then on March 30th, a bid award. And then we'll be set to let the contract by the first Monday in April, according to the RCW 3672. There is also a new, There was a proposed nuke meeting, Northeastern Washington Counties meetings, proposed for February 26th, which is this week. It has been proposed to move to March 31st, which I believe is a Wednesday. Commissioner Holder was all right with that date.
So I did, as we go to a meeting of the Tri-County Forest Group.
Hang on just one second. Sorry, I was waiting until Lanie got done so I could ask her a question. It's pretty important, something I saw. Have we gotten a letter from the Department of Ecology, Office of the Columbia River, from Tom Tebbs, asking about that Crown Columbia water right?
Any mail that we've received is being scanned and emailed to the board.
Okay, because I saw the clerk of the board for
Just seeing everything there.
yeah, the clerk of the board for what is that for
Columbia River Council.
no, Amanda Roughton,
Very County.
8:06 a.m. this morning. She got a letter.
I just received the letters from her regarding the Quad County Forest Group request to send out letters regarding a wolf complaint and four-wheelers. I don't think those are the letters you're talking about. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is Crown Columbia.
Yeah, so Commissioner DeTro is on there.
The letter regarding consultation on water right permit for Crown Columbia. Crown Columbia's water right application.
Oh, yeah.
There's a consultation letter that we just received this morning, just a little while ago after. Asking about consultation. Which are due March 19th on comments.
What would you guys think about giving a letter of support to the caribou? Stating that,
For their fines and stuff?
yeah. This is my personal feeling, that she was essential because it's a hotel. And those people that reside there are dependent on her for food.
I will reach out to you right away.
Well,
And
I was in total disagreement with them shutting down restaurants to begin with.
Yeah.
So what kind of a
just something we could give her attorney. She's got an attorney out of Pasco that handles this type of stuff exclusively.
do you know if anybody else? But the thing that I would say is, if we do that, we got to make sure that anybody else that was in that situation, that we do the exact same thing for them.
Sure. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. I don't.
I mean, anybody that falls in that category, I agree with you.
Mr. Brown?
Letter of support for litigation.
I wouldn't say a letter of support for litigation.
In litigation, I'm just asking the questions. That's what we're talking about.
I don't know how. I could talk to Diana and C and Jeff and ask them how they would like it.
Because that's what and I'm just trying to capture what, because if the letter is of some support, is it to the court?
To the business.
So what would the letter of support would it be? Acknowledging what their situation is, basically.
I mean, personally, I would say that it would be acknowledging the fact that there were so many inconsistencies with the way that this was rolled out, and then given to them, taken away, and the hardships that they were putting on people. That we don't feel that that it's appropriate that L&I fine these people for doing that.
Right.
Are they being fined?
Yeah.
They're up to about $600,000.
600? I thought it was way less than that.
So
I need to verify that, but
I thought I heard $10,000.
No, but that number came from a family member, but I have not asked them personally.
Because my suggestion would be is if, say, I'm trying to identify who we're writing a letter to. That's what the letter, what it means, right?
I would say we write.
So I'm still
To L&I, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. But anyway,
I mean, just use it as a comparison. Airlines, they're 100% capacity when you get on the airplane. And you get off the airplane, you go to a little mom and pop restaurant, and they'll run you off because they're closed. I mean, and I'll use our own Walmart. They had a COVID outbreak in the food department in Walmart, and nothing was said. Period.
I know.
So then we agree that the letter would be a letter to L&I explaining the situation from our perspective. Okay? Okay.
Because it's not to... Oh, you look like you were...
I just
irritated with the fact that I was going to say what's up.
To not make any kind of a statement other than we have discussed verbally and sit and watch stuff happen to these people. It's just real hard to take. I mean, there's lots of businesses that are not opening yet.
Commissioner, I wasn't irritated because you're talking. I was irritated because you cut me off before I was done speaking. That's all.
Commissioner Branch, today, in the conversation that we've had, you've done it to me 3 times.
Cut you off?
Yes.
I apologize.
Okay. So... how would you like to proceed with this? Because I am going to try not to do that. I understand that I do that, okay? I recognize the fact that I sometimes try to get to the point. Or sometimes, just like my brain works to try to go, I want to be efficient, right? That's the way it goes. So I'm going to try not to do that to you. I'm going to leave it at that.
So we're in agreement. Do you want to draft the letter?
I would be willing to, and I will share this much with you guys, is that I will do it in conjunction with the owners of the
So, if you're going to draft a letter, and I appreciate you doing that, what I would like to see is it not be specific to the caribou necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And it will help. I think it will help the caribou, but as county commissioners, I'm just going to say how I feel. I feel that, again, there were inequities throughout this whole process.
Yes.
That we have stores that are considered essential where more people than the town of Winthrop can actually be inside them. And then you have restaurants where they say, well, that's where the most transmission's coming out of. But there is no... What's that?
Do you want to draft a letter?
Yeah. I can try to draft a letter, sure.
Okay, from your perspective, because I think I'm more on the cost.
I know, and that's why I was trying to go, okay, let's put it in a way where we say, that we feel the inequities that L&I has put on several. I mean, look at Gebbers. $2 million fine.
Oh, I know.
And I tell you what, I've already been in contact with a bunch of people about those things and about what's going on with them, because it is ridiculous that company who started their review of policies and procedures and safety in February of last year, when I first found out about it. I was in contact with our public health official all the time. Yeah. All of a sudden, they're being really singled out on those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can try to draft one.
I just got off the phone with Leah McCormick. She would like to, because she was out of the office last week, she was hoping that she could come up at 2 o'clock today or around 2 to talk about some tax title properties that she's following up with the board on. It includes the one parcel the young lady had come to the board late last year about wanting to purchase that was adjacent to her property. Since then, there's 2 other properties that she would like to add to the discussion. Not the original requester, but 2 different tax parcels that Leah wants to talk to you about, in addition to that one. So she'll send up the information for the 3 properties to you today, and she was hoping to come up and brief the board on those at 2. Is that something the board can add?
Looks like that's about the time we have to, because we have rescheduling the public hearing, right? So what are your wishes, board of directors?
No, I think that's fine. I think that at 2 o'clock we should make it. That was the question that I had this morning, was I think that we should be here at 2 to tell people why we had to reschedule that hearing.
Yeah, we'll be here too, right?
Yeah.
But shortly after that, we could probably accommodate Leah on this.
Yeah.
And that might push our review meeting minutes over a little bit, but...
What time would you suggest for Leah to be here by?
2:15?
Or even 2:05. I was just going to say, somewhere right around in there. All I was going to say is that 2 o'clock, there were some people that had called me and were talking about the public hearing on Monday. And I was like, I didn't know we got a notice and all this stuff, and then I saw that we had to change it. So just want to make sure people understood that, because I got some questions on why it seemed we were rescheduling quite often, which I didn't think we were scheduling all that often, but perception.
This is just a discussion amongst us. Nobody else is going to be involved in the pest control interlocal agreement appointments. Or just a board.
Unless we want to have they'll provide any information. He said call anytime we wanted.
Commissioner Brent, were you on that? I saw a call that was Tri-County Pest.
I was. Yes, I was contacted by Commissioner Peter. And there's something that I will bring up at that time as well.
There's another thing that you think I saw was it was the forest.
Yeah, I was just broaching that subject earlier, but we got off on Crown Columbia.
So do you want somebody to take that on?
The pest control thing?
No, there was a
Crown Columbia.
No. There was a meeting.
The forest group one?
Yeah.
I went to the forest group one, and I was just about to touch the subject. I can that if you want me to now. Certainly, I was prepared to do that.
I thought that in the reminder it said, I don't want to take this on. Was that you that wrote that reminder thing in there? Where it says, I don't want to take this on?
I didn't necessarily want to take it on. I don't remember exactly. But
Okay.
I went to the meeting to find out about it.
Okay, great. So what I'm saying is I'd be willing to
Well, that's what we could talk about. Because here's the situation. Since then, there's been a lot of conversation, so I may have said that. But now I'm telling you the results of the meeting, which it's the Tri-County group, of course, and they have expectations and desires that we are participants because of the Tonasket District being integrated into the Colville Forest. And so I was contacted by one of my former co-chairs from the Forest Health Collaborative, and he encouraged me to get there and see what was going on. And I did, and there's the diversity of the folks at the table made me look at it a little differently. And that's what I was concerned about, is that if it was going to be a Tri-County group that didn't have people from Forest Health Collaborative and others involved in the conversation, then I was a little reluctant to be a part of that, because I'm more used to talking to everyone. That's kind of my approach. And so there's quite a diversity of folks on the group. And so my question was, I'd be willing to do that. My question was, do we want to be a part of that forest group, the Four County Forest group, because of that transfer? And I would suggest we do.
I do too.
Pardon?
I say I do too. I suggest that we are part of that out there because we'll be in two different forests.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we'll be over there. We'll be over here. So yes, I think that we absolutely need a say or to be at the table.
And so one thing that I acknowledged too while I was there, though, of course, being by the way, Lloyd McKee's the guy that contacted me. I don't know if you know Lloyd or not. Lloyd was the co-chair of the Forest Health Collaborative. He's from the Nature Conservancy. He used to work for, the mills over.
What did you say his last name?
Lloyd McGee.
Yeah. Right.
He handled purchases and
he did.
small. And he knows a lot about what's going on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I've been working with him on the Forest Health Collaborative, and I really appreciate his knowledge too. And he's on that Forest Collaborative, I believe, over there, the Health Collaborative, representing the Nature Conservancy.
Is that a health collaborative or is that what is that called over there? Don't they have a phrase? No, it's like a real specific name for their forestry stuff there, I thought. Could be mistaken.
Well, they might have a working group I'm not fully aware of.
Okay.
But this one is, and this may be the group, because it's the Tri-County Forest, not a collaborative, I forget what they call it, forest group in English.
So, guys, on this Crown Columbia deal, this is from the ECOG. Should we just forward them that letter that we wrote to ecology?
Well, what happened was when we wrote the letter to ecology, I got on the phone with to just send $50 with our complaint.
What?
Yep. And she said, that's right. Get on the record. You have to send $50. I said, we're a government entity. And I was really, really adamant about why we, as county commissioners, need to send you $50 to get our complaint on the record. So then it went back. She made a couple phone calls. She called back, said, hey, we're going to go through, no, we're going to go through consultation. So this now is our opportunity to go to formally comment with ecology on what's going on here. And I will tell you right now that I am absolutely opposed to it because we have irrigators both this side and that side that both get shut off when the water level gets low. So how in the world could somebody come in here and say they want water rights out of something that's not even here yet, or that would be impacting anybody else?
So I had contacted Sage Rep as well. I wasn't didn't bring up the $50. I was worried. I sent an email, in fact, that stated that we weren't sure if we were going to make this deadline, especially because of the $50. But I mean, it was a short deadline, and my letter was commenting, even though it's not a commenting method. Right. I just said I want to make note that we were opposed to it, and then had talked to her as well. So there was probably others that brought that up, I'm sure, that instigated the consultation process. And so then she called, and she probably called you two right after that and explained to me that they were going through consultation and that we did not agree.
So I think that once we get that, because that letter should come to us because your name's on it. Obviously, Chris, the chairman now, but your name's on it. So it should come to us. So, Lanie, as soon as we get that letter from DOE,
Okay.
could we please have a discussion about it and make some formal comments to them?
So do you think we'll get a formal letter from them?
They said it was mailed out on the 19th.
Actually, it was mailed on the 19th, and that's what this letter, this Sandra sent.
It's the same thing. So we could print it out from her email. I mean, it's the same exact thing. Yeah. We could have the discussion anytime.
I printed it out for the record.
Okay.
So I expect that we'll get one in the mail. I'm surprised that we didn't get it.
But it's the same thing. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. But one thing, Jim, about the forest group, I just wanted to mention all of that to you because I did go to the meeting and it was different than I expected. But I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity too, because it's not rolling all that stuff in your district. So
No, that's good. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay.
that. Yeah, and I know Lloyd,
Yeah.
and he's done a lot. in that area, you know, and I think he's very well respected over that path.
He's respected amongst all the groups. So,
yeah, and he has the ability to do that.
Yes, he does. He's very articulate in that regard. And then, coming from the Nature Conservancy, it's just I've really been impressed because he's really been working, and he uses the same words over and over again about increasing the pace and scale of forest treatment, and he knows what it takes to run a sawmill.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And,
Nature Conservancy is one of the only organizations from that aspect that's logging.
Yeah, and that's basically they're the ones that want to do a huge stewardship process. In other words, they enter into a contract. It's kind of like an A to Z
because
project.
I sat, you know, for a while. Tom Berger was on Wildland Fire, and Tom, you know, he's got a very broad spectrum as far as forest belt is concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. So and then I think that McGee is on that Forest Health Collaborative too. So
yes, he is.
That helps keep things kind of balanced. He's pretty good at that.
Yeah.
But
well, he no longer sits on the Wildland Fire Advisory Committee because they moved him on up into another position that the Commissioner of Public Lands wanted him to be in. So
you didn't happen to be able to get to that deal she had, did you, on that bill
on the what?
That bill she's putting through again for fire control resources?
Oh,
They had a deal the other night, and I was in another meeting when that was going on. So,
yeah, well, we discuss it all the time.
So you're probably real familiar with what she's up to.
Yeah.
So the bill that they're putting through right now is having a little trouble with, there's not an identified funding source, so I suppose it's a budget issue, operational.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
All right. Lauren Torgerson is one of the lead guys that's working on in conjunction with the commissioner.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Well, I just want to make sure you had that.
Yeah, we get a rundown during our meeting. But Lauren will usually give a report on it. And I take those Wildland Fire Advisory Committee minutes and I disperse them to all the county commissioners in Eastern Washington. So if you guys, I don't know, Lanie, when we disperse them, do we also give them to Andy and Chris?
The what?
The minutes of the Wildland Fire Advisory Committee?
I
usually
don't think I
have them forwarded to you, and you disperse them to all the rest of the commissioners in Eastern Washington.
I think I've missed sending them to our commissioners.
Sorry, I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. It's just, but I'm interested in seeing what you're going on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because, when you get in these forest health discussions and then in the other group, knowing what's happening in all those areas is really important.
Yeah. Sometimes
you kind of pick it up there.
Yeah. Well, we're sanctioned by the legislature. The Wildland Fire Advisory Committee is. So, they've tackled some pretty big problems and gotten some good success with it.
Yeah, well, that's what this whole forest health thing's about, and it's just there's so many views in regard to it.
But I know Warren's the liaison that goes over to the Hill all the time on all these different bills, so he comes back and reports to them.
So we have not addressed Pest District. I forget. 20.
Oh, yeah.
So where are we with the appointments? So we had withheld one because we had a couple of people that were applied for it.
Well, I think Clay pulled out Gibbers.
Okay.
Yeah. He said that the other guys have more experience in that specific area than he does.
Yeah.
So we still have another appointment to make?
So there are 2 more appointments to be made. we have we have Rick DeLapp letter of interest. We have letter of interest from Mike Azano. He is from OMAC. Rick DeLapp is from Malott. And then there's an email from Clay Gebbard suggesting that Trey DeZellum is a better fit for consideration for the South County. We currently have 2 members appointed, and that is Brent Van Buskirk, and he represents the Orville area, and we also have Roland Smith, who represents the Pateros area. So we have no representation in OMAC.
Well, Pazano's from OMAC.
Right. But currently we just have 2 people appointed, one from Pateros and one from Orville.
So currently we only have 2 people who have actually submitted letters of interest, and we have 2 positions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I guess it would be my position that we're not necessarily looking for other people if these 2 people fit the bill. However, Clay did say, that there might be somebody else out there. However, they didn't necessarily submit a letter of interest.
Let me look in my junk mail just to be sure he did not end up there. I seem to get a lot of
The other thing we should probably discuss is setting a public meeting, not hearing, but a public meeting for input on a pest control district and subsequent parcel tax.
Oh, yes.
So in that regard, last time we had a discussion, my impression was that we said we agreed that we would look at Chelan and Douglas Counties. So in that discussion, that's what I told them.
Yep, good.
And so the understanding is that they don't have an interest on how we get the money to do it, but they're just interested in moving forward with the season as it's coming up, and then. Shots and values out there, there's $130,000 to $140,000 over a period of time.
So we have enough money in the budget this year with the reserve to cover the $130,000 this year.
Yes.
Because we aren't going to be able to put enough tax. We aren't going to wouldn't be able to put a tax in place this year anyway. It wouldn't be until you have to notify Larry about August. Is that what he said? Is that right? To get it on the roll next year.
I think so. Yes. And that's what I told everything that you just said. So the contract, the agreement is out to Dave. He's looked at it, and he hasn't got it yet, apparently. Nope. So there was only a couple changes he made. I just got those, I think, on the weekend or Friday or something like that. Did you get a copy of it at all?
No, not that I know of.
Even if that's a 2, let's see. Would it come from you, Lanie?
Well, I may have just thought of forwarding it, and then I didn't actually, but I...
Well, or I may have not looked at it. I don't know.
Actually, it doesn't look like I did.
Okay.
Let me...
Well, either way, I can it's very straightforward. One of the things that Dave did bring up, and I clarified with him, is there's a part of that says you deal with your own enforcement costs, and that's each county deals with their own enforcement costs. And like Dave said, well, he goes, I know that Dan did a lot of enforcement work. I think that was in the framework of his job, but when it comes to then taking those steps that cost us money for enforcement, in our own county, we're responsible for it.
I guess I don't understand that, because that's what Dan was doing.
Right. And so how would that work? What's the point of...
what's the point of having
acting with...
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to define what they mean by enforcement there, because you're going to have some issues that you're going to have to probably have the prosecutor involved. Those kinds of costs, there's legal costs of enforcement. So we can clarify that further, but that's the point that we're making. Each one of those counties is responsible for their own enforcement. We could clarify that with Will, and that's something that we said that we can talk about with that. And as soon as I pull the agreement, I think
I don't know what's going on here, but my mail just went.
Yeah, mine is. I went to do a search and it.
I haven't been able to search anything.
Yeah,
anyway, I did find the draft, and I forwarded it to you. And,
okay.
I'm looking for David's email now.
I'm not sure that he sent it to you.
Forward those comments. So the Pest Control Board is who the pest agent would be selected for in a contract put into place by under 1509. Under 1712, that is when the county commissioners hire someone to do the enforcement under the pest listed in 1712. Is what my understanding was.
We're 17 is the vertebrates and stuff, isn't it? Or am I backwards on that?
Correct.
Okay, so we're under 15 is what we're.
Well,
we're under 17 currently.
Actually, we're under both.
Both, right? Okay.
So it just depends on how this all works out, whether it's something that the pest board would select or whether it be something the county commissioners would select. Currently, the pest agent is under the county commissioners. They do the employee, we pay them as an employee, is what I mean. And as, there's several ways to look at it, but he's on the pay schedule.
So I propose that we clean this thing up. So go back to the resolution that talked about RCW 17, repeal it, or repeal it, yeah. And actually go back to the original. Well, yeah, go back to the original RCW under 15 to square everything up, and then make sure it's functioning under 15, and give the pest board a little bit of direction on. Okay, we need some districts now, or Lanie, what it's lands? Is that what it is under 15? The pest board has to
classify. They have to hold a public hearing, classify the lands, and they can say which lands benefit from the assessment and which lands may not benefit and be assessed zero.
Lanie, who could do some research on that process right there as far as classifying land? What are the classifications? Is it each county just makes that? Oh yeah, we have forest highlands, or is it
Is that type of classification?
Yeah, titles that you go, okay, we have that piece. We have forest land, we have upland, steppe, da da da. Or is it they make up their own classifications? So, is there somebody that can do some research on that to help us out with that portion of it, so that the pest board can go about that?
When would you like this information by? This research?
Well, talk about process or what our goals are, I guess. We're going to join this Tri-County Pest Board with the information I think that Commissioner Branch was talking about. What is the actual what does it mean when they say, well, we have to deal with enforcement, right? So let's say we figured all that out and everything moves forward. We have enough money to carry out the agreement this year. So we need to have all that information. We need to have everything done by August. We would have to have all the public hearings and everything done by August. So
everything.
Knowing how things, the time frames that things take here, I would say that we should start immediately to try to start gathering information and getting the pest board together for Commissioner DeTro kind of relay some of the information that we need to, classify these lands so that we can then assess
the assessment.
Okay. And in terms of the appointments for the pest board, shall I put the two that we have before the board for official appointment next week, or shall I get them ready for tomorrow?
Did you email us the applications that those two people sent in?
I believe I did. The letters of interest.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let me just double check.
Could you just email those again so they're on the top of our mailbox so we can read them, and then whatever Commissioner Branch wants to do as far as tomorrow next week. I'm okay with this. Just trying to retrieve data from the So is the Exchange server down?
It is acting.
Lanie, could you call IT and ask them if the Microsoft Exchange server is down? Because my computer's not responding and it's not picking up. Doesn't even do the automatic rating.
Send it to county commissioners. Let's see what happens.
No one answered, but I left a message. Maybe they're working on it.
So Commissioner Branch, just so you're aware, I was talking to planning, asking them, what could have been done better to make sure that public hearing got noticed. And we were talking about, the workload that's in planning right now, and I asked about the shared planner. Mm-hmm. It seems like that's stalled out a little bit.
Yes, it has.
I was
going to bring that one up, but her situation, go ahead.
I would say that we budget the money for another planner.
I'm hoping that you said that.
Yeah.
Hoping that we need it.
We already got half budgeted. We need to get more bodies in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing it up before I had to think about it also.
I would hope that we would get somebody that has experience in subdivision.
Me too. I would like to see us get another senior planner, or at least try.
Yeah.
And somebody that can actually deal with some of the issues outside of Warville. One point I was going to make, though, is they asked for if we wanted to do it with a few hours, and I totally don't want to do that.
I'm sorry?
To only use a few hours, no. And I don't want to do that.
I'm done. They had an opportunity to get
so that's not exactly why I'm doing that, but here's the reason why, so you know. The biggest reason is that if you got a part-time planner in there that's just in there a little bit, and then you got a contract planner, you're going to find trouble. Contract planner. And I did that work for Bridgeport, and the county was doing planning work, and then I was hired to be there, and on a couple of occasions it turned pretty nasty, so I don't want to get over that.
No, they had an opportunity to get a 50% planner. They waffled on it. I personally, I'm done with that. Asking them about it. We need a planner in here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say when we got to that point that you beat me to it, and that's really good.
The city did waffled on it?
Yeah, we asked, the planning asked Orville, the city of Orville, if they wanted to, have a 50% planner with us. And they said that I don't know what was said. I'm not even going to try to quote anything. All I know is that we haven't got, yes, we'll do that, and it's been a long time since we asked. So now, personally, I'm done asking because we need somebody.
Well, and it was for a while there, the roles were reversed. They were asking too, so, and we had, there was a lot of work getting to that point. And so I mentioned that to Joanne, and she said yes, and we appreciate that effort. And they renewed Highlands Associates contract, and that's where I went, well. And I contacted him too. He said, well, I wasn't promoting that. That's just what happened. Yeah. When he told me about it and asked where to go from there, I said, you're going to have to give me a few hours to recover. That's what I get to say. That I might regret.
Recover from?
Sure, you got names.
Oh. Well, I know how much we need a planner over there, and trying to reduce your costs as much as you can, while also trying to do something for another entity. Something that could have worked out well, obviously it didn't. So
so then there was, the issue is, and that's another reason she probably told me that she needed a planner. It's just a marijuana issue alone these days. Cannabis farms. And I strongly suggest at this point that we look at, and I hate to say the word moratorium again, but the moratorium would be on multiple leases on a property, because I think that the size of those farms is growing, and I don't think it would grow that big if it weren't for these partitioning of the properties.
I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was, I know it wasn't the proper time last time. I know that we had, Pete was saying, hey, let's try something else before we do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what I was thinking was, we need to stop this so that we understand what's going on, because what is going on right now is completely different, again, I'll say it, than what was laid out in that last meeting that we had, last meeting, the last public hearing about, how many farms can go on, a place, they're limited because you can only, you have so much room and this and that, and obviously she didn't.
It's again, the partitioning part of it, farm size, I don't know if these farmers would get that big if they didn't have that going on.
They can't, they literally can't, because there's size restraints.
So, and I've talked to a couple of the producers, and they've actually just said, I hate to say it, but they said that very thing. They'd like to see it, because they're not doing it. Some of them aren't doing it, and they're just trying to manage their own businesses, and then the competition is getting great for the space, certainly. So I was glad to hear that there was some supporters of the concept, because they're the ones that aren't doing that.
So I'm on board with that if you want to get something prepared.
Okay.
And however you want to word it.
Yeah, it would be pretty straightforward as far as, no farms. There will be no land use proposals that include the lease of properties for other licensees to operate on them.
Can we do that?
Well, we have to dabble around a little bit with it. It's one of those things I can't answer until I get in the middle of it,
Okay.
And then I think there's one bill, and I haven't tracked the progress of that one, that is making it so that cannabis and liquor cannabis hasn't issued licenses against zoning jurisdiction. I mean, there's one of those out there. I don't know where they're going with it. Check and see if we could support that one. But any of those that put local control back is one of those that WAFIX fully supports. They don't waffle on it. They have some concerns.
Is there any other things that we need discussion on before we adjourn for lunch?
I'm working on getting you this agreement so we can talk about it.
You're doing that?
I'll look at it.
Really screwed up.
How about if I just print it?
Yeah, if you can, that would be great.
There is one more thing that I would like to bring up, and I'm trying to get it forwarded to you, but we did receive meeting minutes from the Methow Watershed Council, requesting the Board of County Commissioners acknowledge several IGs for the council positions number 1, 2, and 4. They had recommended Greg Knott, Mike Fort, and Alyssa Jumars. And so Sarah had requested a while back that the board acknowledge these appointments, but I asked her to send me the meeting minutes of the council showing those recommendations, so I now have those. I can put them on for acknowledgement next week, or the board can certainly make a motion or move to acknowledge this week, whatever you prefer.
And I was at that meeting, and I do know that they have gone through the noticing. Not technically, I don't think there's a noticing requirement, but I know that it was advertised in the paper as far as these positions were coming up and where they to be represented or where they were. So I feel that there was opportunity for the public to be in to apply, I guess.
So yeah, to meet the goal of giving everybody the opportunity,
Giving the general public the opportunity to be on a board of council or advisory board. Oh, I'm gonna have to throw this thing.
okay, I printed these out.
Okay, good. I don't know if it's just my computer or what, but it's
No, I'm having my outlet just died.
just died. Okay, yeah. All right.
And this agreement is basically it's what they have between them, so that this is how many pages is this?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep.
And then I can refer to Dave's comments, which there's a couple of things are just typos, misspellings. I think if I can get Outlook to even look at his email. And by the way, those are my notes at the very end. After time. That was projections.
Does that mean mid-March? Is that supposed to say mid-March? I'm assuming, not mock.
Yeah,
Mid-March about their time.
sounds right. Yep.
So, can I, as I'm going through this, can I point out things that I'm just said? Okay, so 2.02 says the pest agent serving as the department director and their staff shall be employees of Chelan County, okay, and shall operate under the control and authority of Chelan County. Mm-hmm. Now, what is that? The thing that immediately jumped to my mind is, okay, what happens if we have an issue going on and all of a sudden Chelan County says, hey, we need you back here, that was simply my question. What does that pertain to? Is it just
well, to me, it pertains to personnel and the management of those personnel, like we would have to do the same thing with, let's say we have Maurice as a part of an agreement. Local, but he's at our employee. So when it comes to personnel policies and when you have to deal with HR issues.
I assume that, but I guess for Dave, for legal, I would just.
He never said anything about that. But,
okay.
But we could, if this is fairly open. I sent this to Dave, and I understood that, reading it, I understood it worked real well between them, and it might not work with us, and there's three of us. So I don't have a problem at all. I don't own this, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there's one other point I made during the conversation, was that I said, they were dealing with the chair of the board, and I said, any one of us could be the person that deals with this. So it's these guys didn't necessarily choose me to do this. Bob Beaver just contacted me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so in 2.03, they're going to take all capital expenditures that exceeded $5,000, disperse them back to Chelan and Douglas. Which I suppose makes sense.
The Okanogan Pest Control has a truck and a chainsaw. And I think those are the two major pieces. Oh, I think maybe a pole saw.
So maybe we should think about surplusing those items and the money going into the account.
Yeah,
What
I
about
think Will indicated
enforcement?
that they really don't have any use for that stuff.
Well, I had asked if it would be something that they could use, and they said because they only have 2 trucks. If he has to hire somebody for here, they would need a truck too.
But we're contracting with them for $130,000, so they can buy the truck if they need it. What I'm saying is that they're dispersing all of their capital expenses back to their 2 counties. We need to do the same thing, basically liquidate our capital expenditures, put it into our fund, and then move forward.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's prior, so...
Right, and then everything...
is whatever we do.
Right, and then everything after the agreement that's bought, if the agreement goes away, it's distributed back 3 ways. Oh, so legal services and insurance related to enforcement actions shall be provided. So they do specify that. So legal services and insurance.
Yeah, which one are you on now?
3.01.
Okay, here we go.
Basically, so Chelan County will do everything except for legal services and insurance related to
enforcement action. So
could we find out what the insurance is? I don't understand that.
I would imagine it's our risk pool, but we can have time to have a look and talk about that too if you want. But you can imagine that there's a lot of risk involved in your enforcement activities.
I do. Would Dan be able to, because is he still employed, or he's done now?
His last check will be on the 29th. He ended on the 10th.
Would you call him and just see if he would be willing to come in and talk with us about, what enforcement actions there are? Just give us a little rundown on it.
And again, it's just like, call me if you need anything. So, if we need to expound on the subject.
It would be, and maybe if Will would be willing to come in at the same time that Stan does And we talked to Dan about, okay, Dan, what were you doing for enforcement? What was our cost? What was our liability? What was our insurance? So the Will hears that, and then Will can kind of say, well, this is what we were doing. 3.02. Chelan County shall maintain all books and records related to the pest board and its operations. Upon termination, such books and records shall remain with the Chelan County. I want to make sure we get copies of everything, though. It's board through the pest agent shall provide service and excellence with 59. Okay. County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Does Dan serve as a...
No, we had that conversation as well, and I didn't think that we needed to have the pest agent on our solid waste advisory. And Dan hasn't go to their meetings as a SWAC member either. In fact, if there's an issue that comes up that is affecting the SWAC, that Dan would just go there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
And that's what we will, as I said, if it came to something that you needed to address our SWAC with, he goes, I just come there. Because he said he never goes to their meetings either. So
Back to,
Outlook is down.
if you go up to 902, maintenance and audit of record, shall maintain record documents and other relative performance of this agreement. So isn't that
that's kind of contradictory to what they were saying in 3.02. Yeah. Okay.
However, books and records related to enforcement and separation doesn't negate it, but related to best board and its operations, and this one here says.
So that's like basically we have to maintain the payment record. So when we're paying, if the contract's for $130,000, it's our job to keep the books for the fact that we made a payment for $130,000. So when they go back and audit us, why did you give that money? So it's a little bit different. This, I think, and Mr. Branch, you were talking, I apologize. This 3.02, I think, is just the like minutes and things like that.
Right, pest board's operations.
Yep. 3.05, I'm a little bit skeptical on the word consult. Chelan County shall consult Douglas County, Okanogan County, and the pest board prior to making any pest agent employment actions, such as hiring. So what does that mean? Because if they decide that they want to hire 4 other people and they say, well, your payment just went up by $40,000,
they would have to come and talk to us. Tell us. So, on budget, by November of each year, the pest board shall submit a proposed annual budget to the Board of County Commissioners of each county for review and approval. No expenditure shall be made unless part of an approved budget.
Okay. Good.
I think that was, again, them that being their employees. And let's see, what if he went out there and did something that none of us probably would approve of?
Right.
They would have to take the action because it's their employee.
I haven't picked up anything.
Okay, so 4.04 would be we do not use GAAP accounting. So that is an issue right there. Unless
as Lars mentioned,
Did you happen to pick up something of HR's in your last print?
All I got is these documents right here.
Is there something attached to the end of the I-9 verification?
Anybody got an I-9 verification at the end of their anybody got 7 pages, I believe. But there were 2 documents that went to Crystal.
Okay.
That were on top, and I handed them to her.
Okay, maybe she's got them. Thank you very much.
Okay, you bet. So that was, and then again, 1004 was attorney's fees, disputes. Each county shall pay its own attorney's fees and costs incurred for any enforcement or interpretation of this agreement. It's another one of those things that we are responsible for. In other words, if we have it, that's under the dispute section. And you noted section 303 on the chapters 1508 and 1509 is what. Mm-hmm. There, okay, just want to make sure you got. .03. I think we should actually look at that and so termination. It says the agreement may be terminated up to 30 days prior written notice to the other counties, and in the event a county's anticipated or actual funding to the Pest Board is lost, withdrawn, reduced, or limited in any way. Then it says, in the event of termination, the county shall be liable for payment in accordance with the terms and conditions incurred up to the effective date of termination. So that should actually be on a yearly basis, that the counties are liable for the payments for the entire year in which it was terminated. You budgeted for that year. So, let's just say the opposite. Like, let's say Douglas County says, okay, well, we don't want to do this anymore. And they terminate in February, 30 days notice. That means they only have to pay up to February. And then we're stuck with trying to figure out, okay, how do we fund this, for the rest of the year? Yeah, I don't like it from that end, but if I'm on the other end of it, I don't like it either. I mean, if something comes up and then we have to pay for the rest of the year, we don't get the services, I wouldn't be very happy about that either. So, but you're budgeted. So it gets into the circumstances of the situation I hear what you're saying, and I can appreciate what you're saying, but it just, especially when it says that something affects our funding, typically, that could happen, worst case scenario. Typically, in an agreement like this, everybody comes together right now and warns the other, we got something coming down and we're going to make it, typically.
So the insurance part, I'd be interested to know Tanya's taking that, because it says we're responsible for 1/3 of all insurance deductible payments made by Chelan County, but yet so it says deductible payments for the risk pool, yet it says we are all supposed to be responsible for our own insurance. And so, are there two different things that could happen, I guess? And are we not covered? I mean, I guess if they're operating in Okanogan County, are they not? I question where the insurance liability lies for us if we belong to the risk pool also, and we're paying into that, and we have an agreement that says if anybody acting within our county has something that happens, that it's our responsibility to pay our deductible and whatnot, right? So if all of a sudden, he's down there and 2 or 3 or 4 things happen in Chelan and Douglas County that requires the payment of a deductible, why are we paying 1/3 of that deductible?
Yeah, I understand the question.
Okay. Right.
To be answered.
Uh-huh.
So, except in 701, of course, insurance, it says, except as provided in 702, pest board shall be insured as a Chelan County agency or department. The pest board shall pay its proportionate share of insurance premiums incurred by Chelan County through the Washington Risk Pool. So they're all paying for the insurance for the pest board. And except for the enforcement action 702, right?
So again, that's a question I want to ask Tanya is, do we pay, what insurance do we pay on the pest board right now? Do we pay on the pest board right now?
On our pest board?
Yeah. And is that, because then we'll just move it, right? We won't pay that anymore, and we'll just pay them, right?
You may have already talked about this, but 1/3 of the approved budget is what? Because we're talking $130,000, but it doesn't say anything about $130,000.
Which
section are you looking at, Lanie?
On 4, financing, budgets, and reporting.
Mm-hmm.
It just says that each county will be responsible for 1/3 of the budget, but it doesn't talk about what that is.
Well, Chris has some notes back here. It says $126,000 the first year, $130,000, $134,000, $136,000, and then level off after that.
And then there's a budget proviso here, the provision.
Okay, maybe
it has to be approved budget.
Yeah.
So the budget is annually what we determine the budget to be collectively.
And also, when it talks about the pest board, which pest board is that?
The Joint Horticulture Pest and Disease Board that shall operate under the Tri-County. It's under 501.
Right. Okay, so it shall be 14 members. 1 member shall be appointed by the director. 1 member shall be jointly. Should be non-voting. Each county shall appoint 4 members meeting qualifications. So all of those folks will be, are referred to as the pest board, even though each county has its own, who will have 4 members, who will be part of the 14-member, okay, 4 times 3 is 12, and then one of those will be department, and the other will be the chief extension, okay.
So that's a question.
So who appoints them? Each county shall appoint.
So, under the recitals, if you go up to those, because each of the questions that we have are usually a part of another provision in this thing. So, it says the first recital is, whereas each county has established a horticulture pest and disease board pursuant to RCW 1509, and the separate boards have been heretofore operating as the joint board in the Okanogan. So they're pointing out right here that established that Chelan and Douglas County Pest and Disease Board is their board, and we have a separate board now. So they're describing the situation, but what I see happening here, and it's a question that comes to mind as well for me, is that is our board no longer existing anymore?
What is their function? They would need to go to each of the quarterly meetings.
It says in enforcement actions, it says that the only way an enforcement action can happen within a county is by 3 members of that county's representatives of the board voting for it.
That's the purpose.
So basically they're saying you have to have a quorum that votes to do enforcement actions.
So the purpose and creation is in Article 1. And it says the purpose of the agreement is to set forth the terms and conditions under which the counties will jointly and or cooperatively operate the Tri-County Pest and Disease Board, hereafter referred to as the Pest Board, to exercise the powers and duties. My impression has been that once we get into this agreement that we don't have a pest board other than this pest board.
Well, Okanogan County is part of. It's just like however the joint health boards are created. You have a board that is a representative of 2 or 3 counties.
They would still have to operate under 1509 within the powers under that, which there are some decisions that the individual county pest boards need to make.
Such as
the assessments,
good call.
And also the enforcements.
Enforcements they do reference as enforcement actions need to be voted on by 3 members.
And
but
budget.
I guess that something. I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. Just making a comment.
I'm not either.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. I see no other involvement, and I don't know. So my answer to the question is I don't know what the role of a pest board is in their situation. There, it doesn't sound like they have 2 separate pest boards. They've created this, formed and established this pest and disease board, and that tends to be the end of it. Right now, we are having that pest and disease board set or recommend to us, right, the scenario in terms of the taxation, et cetera.
I don't see the taxation part. I don't see as being an issue because what you're saying is that through this agreement, you're just agreeing to 1/3 of the approved budget. All the county commissioners have to approve the budget in order for the budget to be approved. Right? So that's where you go, okay, well, we can't afford, we're not going to raise our rates we're not going to raise up our assessment to pay for the, some exorbitant amount of money, so we're just going to back out of this. So that's where I see we have all that. But I think what Lanie's referring to is under 1508 and 1509, what are the responsibilities of the pest board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then does that then get transferred to this larger board, and are they entitled to make those decisions in a 1508 and 1509 for Okanogan County?
And I understand her question 100%, and I don't know the answer. That's all right.
I wasn't asking you for the answer.
Oh,
I was just saying.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Restating.
And the thing that I'm looking at is we need to answer all these questions.
Right.
So in 1509-050, it talks about powers and duties of the six things list. They receive complaints, charge the owner for the expense of such work. 5, to employ such persons and purchase such goods and machinery as the Board of County Commissioners may provide.
That's where there is a little bit of goofiness there. Because Chelan County employs them. Right?
Right.
See, so
It employs the,
Chelan County employs the agent, and it actually says in RCW that it should be the
County
Pest Board.
To employ such persons and purchase such goods and machinery as the Board of County Commissioners may provide. I would imagine provide in the budget.
Yeah, probably.
And then 6, to adopt, following a hearing, such rules and regulations as may be necessary for the administration of this chapter.
Yeah, so that gives a lot of...
which one is that under, by the way?
1509-050, and there's reference to 1508 as well. There's a lot in there.
Board of County Commissioners may provide. Let's see, to adopt following any situation maybe. It's kind of interesting that they would adopt the rules and regulations, but the county commissioners still got to adopt rules and regulations.
I know, I agree.
Well, we need some clarification on that stuff. But,
So, Commissioner Branch,
yeah.
I have questions on this, and I can just write a email that says, list out my questions on the sections, and I could forward it to everybody. Is that what you would prefer? Okay.
I would much better prefer that you have me do it, and then I'd have to do it.
No. I can write out. Hey, these are all the questions I have. I just want to know the process that you want because you've handed this to us. I'm in favor of doing this.
Okay.
But I want to.
I said I didn't have any ownership in this.
I know you didn't.
I just brought it to you.
Yep. And so therefore, we got to get some questions answered.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Should I write that one down that you agreed with me?
Yeah, I'd put that down too. Nothing to hide here.
Okay. Are we, is there anything else?
So, let's plan that we would then try to get these questions answered and be able to get the agreement in place next week or the week after.
Could we shoot for the week after? Because I think that to get Dan and Will in here, if we could do that next week, give them a week to do it, then, and then I can write up the questions that I have and send them to. So who do I send them to as far as county commissioners go for Douglas and Chelan?
Actually, I would send them to Will and then just see Bob Bugert. He'll share it with you.
For the whole thing?
Yeah.
So Bob would send it out to Mark or whoever?
No, Mark's the other one.
Okay, so send it to Mark and Bob and Will. And then, all right.
But I mean, I'd address the questions to Will and then CC those guys.
I will. Yeah. Actually, I'll see both of them.
I'm familiar with the agreement and anything that has come up. I mean, the issue with their separate boards, they're pretty familiar with. But Will be familiar with it more than any of them because those guys are fairly new too. I mean,
I'll see them both on Thursday.
Excellent.
All right.
Anything else? Yeah, a couple of things, maybe. Oh, back to the report on the forest group. And I will zoom in a little bit more on that. Was that, and I'm thinking that do they have a president of the Cattlemen's Association for over in that region as well? You know who that is? I can't remember the gentleman's name. And this was somebody that called into the forest group, I'm presuming Sherry County or
Stevens County, maybe?
Maybe Stevens County.
Yeah, Scott Nielsen. Oh, no, he's Methow. But they do that.
Anyway, so that gentleman brought in a comment, and I think there's a lawsuit maybe going on over there.
Yeah.
And so he has, you know, the environmental community, I think, there at the table, and they're there. And he brought up an issue in that thing that it sounded like the whole intent of the thing was to get the cattle completely off the forest. And so he brought up the issue, and he stressed that in the conversation. I just wanted you to know that. And that they were going to send out some of those details of the suit to explain what is being done there. So it's something to watch out for. That sort of thing. And we didn't get into any conversation philosophically about it, but it's one that I do ask the Forest Health Collaborative often is that do you include cattle grazing as a forest management technique? And sometimes it's sidestepped. But it's one that I bring up quite a bit because well-managed cattle can certainly do a lot of good for the forest. But I just wanted to share that that's something that came up. So any of those groups are not without their conflict, and that's why they have a group. Right? Get out there and talk about it.
So if knowing how busy you are, one of us, I'm sure, would be more than willing to sit on that.
And I'm willing to sit on it. I talked to Jim about it, and I said it's his district, it's his in, and he seems confident that my knowledge and who I'm working with here is to provide for it. In fact, I was one of the ones that promoted the idea as well in conversation about moving the expansive district. The concern I had was this, is that if the conversation becomes completely one-sided and that's the only people at the table, you all can take it. That doesn't get me anywhere as far as the work I like to do, and that is get the people there, and even if it's uncomfortable, let's talk about what the issues are. And that's what happened at that meeting, and I'm sure shared that is that there's folks there at that table that don't agree on a good variety of issues, and that's a good thing from my perspective. Not having them at the table then puts everything in a situation where it's an us and them thing, and then we're acting outside of the conversation with them, and that's when it gets to the legislature, and then they get confused about what we all trying to do. It's like even the out-of-basin transfers, which there's a letter proposed, by the way, that I wanted to talk about out-of-basin transfers. But if you have a screaming desire to be a part of it,
no, I mean, if you're gonna go forward with that, then that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Let's see, we've got there's some legislation that you're probably more familiar with than anybody else to water banking. I don't know where you are with the water banking thing, but there's an effort with Steel and Gainer, primarily Gainer, to provide capital funds to support the development of a water bank for ag water rights in the watersheds of Okanogan County. And there's a request by Laura Super and Mary McCrae that have been working on that particular thing. I think you've been in conversation with them.
Yes.
And apparently that Gainer's willing to work on this, maybe because I just got this.
So the capital, so, we made the request for the $500,000
for planning effort.
For planning effort, which is out of the operation. Right? This, after discussion with some different people, this would be out of the capital budget.
Mm-hmm.
And, Representative Gaynor obviously went through the motions and worked hard to try to get that out-of-basin transfer bill in, and it was opposed by the Yakima Nation and Tribal Methow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's opposed by things that I've been saying for a long time. Why would they support it when it just puts water in stream? That they have no reason to support something that enhances what they're trying to do. So, trying to get a water bank set up would be a good thing, because I think we've heard from everybody in this, all different sectors of this county, that we need a water bank to do these sorts of things. So I think it would be good. Now, they're talking about the conservation district going up. How, and I know this is going to be a question that I'm going to throw out there. I don't know if you can respond right now or not. How do you each feel about the conservation district being the water bank for Okanogan County? Again, you don't have to answer right now, but it's a question to think about, because that's basically what this is pushing for.
Well, this draft letter says this, and I tend to agree with it, that the Okanogan CD is a trusted local organization with a long-time history of providing technical assistance and other resources to land managers, farmers, and ranchers throughout Okanogan County. And I agree with that statement. And so I guess the downsides of it, I don't know.
I'd be hesitant because I personally know some people down there that are totally anti-agricultural water.
At the conservation district?
Yeah. Or is it up? Well, yeah, I think it's NRCS.
No, that's different. Different. NRCS is,
It's a federal agency.
Is a federal agency. So is it in the conservation district? Because I thought that
That's correct. It's a conservation district,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think this person, I'll have to double check.
Check it out.
We'll do that then. My thoughts are this time I will go to Kittitas County, because they did set up water banks. Their original private water banks were charging lots and lots of money, right? They could charge whatever they want because they were a for-profit entity. So I don't know how the price setting would be for water down there. That would be one concern that I have with it.
Yeah.
So they're not a for-profit.
Right.
Right. So what is the thought on how do you price water? If you're buying it at 5,000 an acre foot, what are you selling it for?
Well, cost recovery.
And I don't have that answer.
Right, so I'm cost recovery before.
That's what you're proposing.
Yeah.
Is cost recovery.
Yeah. Because it's not a sustained organization. It is for cost recovery for the program, and the program has an administrative side to it, and it has the purchase of the water rights cost, and the management right.
I agree with you a little bit, but I also disagree in the fact that where do you get your capital to buy more water then, if it's just cost recovery? So that's one thing that we need to kind of discuss is, because if let's say you have 50% return on sale, that goes directly back into purchase of other water rights.
Well, if it's proposed to be a revolving fund of sorts, then in fact you might make a reserve for that, or if you had the original dollars to do it, and then you recovered those dollars, you could reinvest.
You could keep doing it.
Yeah,
you're right.
But
at $350,000, so I would be interested to know. See, the $350,000, that's not even for purchase of water. That's just to set it up.
Uh-huh. So, but the conceptually, taking just an opposite position just for the sake of having a discussion, and conceptually that you get those issues figured out in the first place. But this one, in fact, provides the capital funds to support the development of, and I would think the development of would have a contribution that gives you the money to do what you need to do. So, in other words, buy it. Like ecology is talking to us about allowing us to buy our water rights in the region back into the region. It's not like they were ours, but and actually giving us the money to do it. Interesting to me, but they're willing to do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way, to me, it would work. And I only have experience with one water banking situation.
I don't have any.
And that experience was that we made payments on the water. And then there was a system development fee, which is the same thing as the water bank.
I haven't heard anything lately about that experimental water bank thing there in Walla Walla. Have you guys?
But this particular circumstance is the only reason we could do it, because it's a municipal water system that we bought the water on payments back. Took over the contract. And as those water connections came in, people bought a share of that, basically bought a share of that water.
Right.
And they paid it back. They paid the whole damn thing back. Now, they put the money out, they paid it back. Where they would invest to buy another water right, I don't know. They might do the same thing. They might bond and buy the water right. I don't know. But it turns out to be a successful thing. But again, they're providing it as well. You've got a system to provide it. So water banking, aside from that, you're not providing service after that. But they're paying for the service. But the delivery is really easy and predictable. In this case, you buy the rights and then the rest is up to you. In the bank. But at least you have a place to go buy water. For instance, in that situation, the deal was the developer comes to the table. It wasn't in our jurisdiction, so we said, well, we're not going to serve water outside the jurisdiction. You don't have to. But if you want water outside the jurisdiction, then you will do several things. One is you'll extend the line, the infrastructure, to get the water to you. And number two, you'll bring the right to the table. And that's what brought the right to the table. But it was amazing that they found it. But then again, if you're willing to pay $10,000 an acre foot, it's not as hard to find somebody if it's there. But we're up in the north end of the region. I mean, there's not much upstream from it. And it just so happens that a guy has it right there close to our wells, and that guy brought it to the table, and of course made a big offer because they were going to make a lot of money on their development, which was going to fail because that all fell apart, and that same thing for Veranda Beach. Initially, they were also a developer that had brought the water to the table, They brought the water right to the table. And they had the wells there to get the water out of. But when it was determined that those wells were just beyond a divide in the system, the place of withdrawal, the point of withdrawal, they said, well, you can't use your system to deliver that because it's outside the area. It's a different aquifer. And all we wanted the water to do, the water on the side, the well was on. We wanted to just deliver it out of our system right down the road. And it was like, well, that's not the safe place of withdrawal. We need to get that water right out of that place. And, we couldn't do it. So we got kind of screwed on that deal. Not necessarily, I mean, we didn't put anything out, but the agreement was we provide them water. Well, they pay for the infrastructure, and then the water, in the end, is provided through the system, but that was all part of their development, system development fees. But those are banks in a sense.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you buy the water. That was in the county. The county didn't have a water bank. We had the water bank. But to deliver.
Well, one thing is OTID has a water bank. They have water to sell. I do not see anybody clamoring for that water.
Who has it?
So, Okanogan County Irrigation District. Oh, if it's within the main stem river, you can pull off the main stem.
Is their bank completely legitimate now? They can go ahead and sell it?
They have it advertised.
But they're leasing.
Yeah, they're leasing water, but I don't see anybody. Well, it's just like.
It's not a purchase, though. It's at least, just so you know. They're only releasing, let me get this straight. Aren't they only leasing the water because that's how they keep it available? Relinquishment.
It's possible.
Pretty sure that's why they do.
But I don't, I would be curious to know how many people are actually.
Me too.
Well, no, because they said it was like 10,000 acre foot or something like that to sell, I thought.
Well, maybe they don't want to sell it that much.
That's right. Well, I know.
Because their benefit would really be if they leased it, then they held that water for agriculture, and they wouldn't lose it to relinquishment. Right. And that's where the city could hold water and not be subject to relinquishment because municipal water money. They could sit on it. And
well, apparently that can be challenged also, I think.
Well, anything can be challenged.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to, you never know what's going to come out at the end of anything. But, a little earlier I was talking about the potential to go through, as people come in with different, situations, and, you talked about mitigation, and they have forms of mitigation. I've never seen for the Methow Valley a mechanism for mitigation that is easily identifiable that you can hang your hat on it. So,
well, let me just point out one that I would propose and that I think is valid. If let's say I own a piece of property, let's say I own two pieces of property, okay? One of them upstream from the other one of them pre-2002, one of them post-2002, okay? I can drill a well on my pre-2002 parcel right now. I can't on my post-2002. However, if I like my post-2002 piece of property, and it's downstream from where I want to be, and I say, county, I'm going to put a title restriction on this that says that there can be no exempt well use on this parcel.
The one that you already have to.
Correct.
Well,
and I'm going to move it to my post-02 parcel. Now, doesn't that seem like valid mitigation?
Can't you do that right now?
What?
Can't you just go do that right now?
I doubt it because there is, just what you said, there's no mechanism for it. Nobody has attempted that yet.
There's a mechanism, isn't there? You transfer the water rights.
But, okay, you bring up a good point. exempt wells are technically, you can get a right on them. They are just exempt from permitting. But how do you transfer an exempt well use?
Well, you already have the use established, huh?
Yeah.
I guess that's an argument to make.
No, why would I not? No, even if I didn't have the use established, I have the right to go in and drill an exempt well on a parcel.
I can't see where that would fall into place. And you have a right. I mean, maybe.
Why wouldn't it? If I have a right to go drill a well on a parcel.
Right. No, I hear in principle what you're saying. I just don't know that nobody's tried it. And again, I don't see the mechanism for that with a single-family exempt, because the establishment of the single-family exempt is by drilling the well and using it. So, yes, because there is no permitting process. Right.
So that's the thing. It is exactly the same as a groundwater right. You can actually apply to ecology for a right based on your usage of that, but it's just exempt from permitting. So if I were to come to get a permit, let's say that it wasn't going to be an exempt well. Let's say that I wanted to go through the actual process, even though it would take me 20 years. But let's just say I go, okay, ecology, I have a parcel, and I would like to withdraw water from it. This is the withdrawal point. This is where the well is going to be. It's going to be for, 5,000 gallons or less for exempt or domestic use. I can do that.
You can drill that well, and your establishment of the right is actually almost like the original Washington water law, where first in, first right. So first in means you had to do something to make that right established.
No, because under our reserve of water, which all these wells are getting drilled against, it's in 1976. The right is pertinent to the date of that.
So anybody that has a lot today don't even have to talk about the exempt process. Then they have a right to amount of water out of the Methow rule.
Yeah, correct. Less than 5,000 gallons a day.
And so the exempt well part of it, single family exempt, doesn't play into it.
The only thing that plays into it is the fact that single family and stock water, because of poorly written language and not coming up as well, are the only two exempt uses that have priority.
Well, I think that option is one that would be proposable. That's a word. And I think you would have to address water law appropriately, because there's not something there that says, in fact, that we've allocated 2 CFS per reach, and that the way you get that water is you just have an absolute right to use it without the domestic exempt process. So the domestic exemption is here. Again, I go back to how you establish a water right under domestic exempt. You don't need to apply for a permit. You don't need to apply for a water right. You get it when you put it in and start using it, right?
But the water right is already established. It was established in 1976.
What does it say?
Oh, I'll read it.
I mean, I read the rule, but I'm not saying I read that in there. So
okay.
Deliver something, guys.
Okay.
Well, I will find where it says that basically anytime you drill against this right, or anytime you drill against that 2 CFS, you have the 1976 date. Otherwise, there couldn't be any water use.
See, the only difference I see in that is that because the Methow Valley has a special rule and limited water. I want to argue that point.
Limited physical or limited on paper.
Well, why is the Methow rule in place?
Why is it in place?
Yeah. So I just didn't want to get into that part of it. But
okay.
Just to follow that same line of thinking, though, so they allocated to 2 CFS, and the only way you can get that 2 CFS is first in, first right. Because once you go past it, the only difference I see between that and me over here going to a parcel and using the domestic exempt is that I get to use domestic exempt wells until it runs out.
No, totally different. And that's why people are so, they just can't grasp, I think, the concepts of what's going on. Over here, the reason why we had to go through basin planning was because what?
No, we should leave that out of it.
No, because you brought it up.
Basin planning wasn't going on in 76.
I understand that. I'm talking about well drilling. Okay. So why is it that they were so concerned that we were so concerned about well drilling over here? What were we doing over here? We were infringing on the in-stream flow. People were drilling wells with no reservation, so it's first in time, first in right.
Yes.
The in-stream flow value was set in 1970, or was it 76 or 77, I think, for here. Okay, so every time you drilled a well, and that water's below its own water right, you're causing
you're hypothetically causing a reduction in its flows.
Yeah.
That's why they call it stream flow restoration.
Correct. And so then over here, the only way that we could drill wells again was if we found water or net ecological benefit. Well, you had to find water anyway. You had to find a water offset for drilling those wells. Okay. So my well, you are correct. Over here, when I drilled a well, it was the date of that well punch and my use.
Sets your priority.
Sets my priority date. Over there, that's not the case. That is not the case. So other than if I am too close, like cone of influence. If I got an initial well, like if I got a well here and somebody drills another well here, and it's that date, right? But they all go back to 1976.
So, but in order to access any of that water, I have to drill a well and use it, right?
Correct, but I have a parcel. If I own a parcel, I have the right to use water on it.
Yeah, so do I over here. And I did before Hearst came along and made the stream flow restoration.
You do. Over here, you have a right to use it on every parcel. Over there, right now, not necessarily. Okay, but can I, if I have a parcel that I have a right to use water on,
yes, can
I transfer that right to a different parcel? If I put a restriction, a title restriction, through the assessor that says there can be no, because I'm doing this.
Conceptually, I hear what you're saying precisely.
Okay.
But I don't know where the mechanism is to make that happen.
We need to make a mechanism.
Right.
We have to do it.
So
there is no state mechanism.
Right. So that's what my original statement was, that I see no mechanism to do that today, but conceptually.
Right. So those are things that we need to have discussion with as a board, have discussion with planning about, is here are the types of mitigation that I see could come through your door, right? Conceptually. Conceptually I say, hey, I want to put a cistern in, and I'm going to buy it because we have a water supplier. We have Culligan. You have Culligan. I don't know how much water they can supply. But if I were to say, hey, company who owns Culligan, would you be willing to fill my cistern over in the Methow?
Right. So the mechanism, we could talk to them about it, but they'll go, okay, and when somebody proposes it, what do we do? Because we don't have the mechanism in place, right?
I know that.
Under law.
Right. And so that's why I'm saying we should begin that process.
I'm agreeing with you.
Good.
But right now, the other thing is that comes into play, and I think you know this, is that there's water purveyors around, right?
Yep.
And people are hauling the water from these water purveyors. And they have a water right as a place of use.
Not necessarily.
I've never seen a water right that didn't have a place to use.
Well, I can tell you that all bottled water doesn't have a place of use.
Right. But
So that's a commercial use of a water right.
Okay.
We did it. My family did it.
I know they did.
So what I'm saying is that Culligan is a purveyor of water.
Where did they get? Okay.
I have no idea, Chris.
Okay. I'm just telling you this so that it doesn't get too big of a deal out of it. You got to make sure you think about what hasn't been challenged. Just that's it.
Well, if
That's it. That's all.
I understand that, but the thing is that if you don't look, well, I think we want the same thing, right?
Yeah.
If you don't think outside of the box, and you go,
You know I do, right?
I do,
Okay. Good.
I do, but like I said, how can, I guess, when you say, well, I don't know, can that be challenged? Water suppliers have been doing it for years and years and years. Bottled water companies have been supplying water to people.
And they may have a water right that says they can do that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is
That's a place of use, and so that's the purpose and place of use then is defined in the water right. So when I go to try to get a water right, let's say I got a water right on my place, right, and I'm serving agriculture, and then I decide I'm going to sell water, and so I do.
and it's a commercial activity.
Okay, it's a commercial activity.
Yeah.
So has anybody challenged that commercial activity? No.
Right.
So when we create systems or devices or mechanisms to mitigate, then that brings that up to another level of consideration and challenge.
Okay.
You know why?
I do, because everybody wants to challenge everything. That's it.
Well, not necessarily.
And all I can say is that the things that are going on that I've seen that are currently going on in other places in this state to mitigate for water, I know these things can be done.
So
because they're already doing it.
They're doing it at? I'm curious.
Walla Walla. Walla Walla can attest.
Okay.
So
I'll
find out all the different.
Somebody's holding the water, right? And they're selling water and hauling it into cisterns in the mountains.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's in Kid Test.
Okay.
They did that.
All right. So.
And then in Walla Walla, they're doing whatever it is, the points. It's not point source. It's basically micro injection. Whatever it is. They're bringing water from somewhere else.
So yeah, the Columbia River.
Okay, so
they're doing that in down in what is it?
Okay, so there's places where they're moving water around.
Big agreements come with those, right? Columbia River water is being transmitted through the Columbia Basin project.
Okay, so let's move to where I just say,
okay, but if you bring me those, I'll look myself. I can find that out. I can go investigate that to see what kind of prospects we have to do that, right? Because it's being done right now, and it's not being talked about much. Because if people bring it up, they go, well, if I buy it from a municipality and take it somewhere else, they do absolutely have a good place to use in their water right. Adjourn.